All right, everybody, welcome back to the Good Ad Fellas. I'm one of your hosts, Carson. This is my partner, Luke. Today, we're going to be diving into a couple different topics, actually.
Mm.
The first one we've got is the danger of data in advertising. The second is how small brands can succeed with their ads. And then number three, we're going to do a little bit of a dive into brands that advertise well, but also why they advertise well and why they're successful. We've got a lot going on both of our ends right now, but
Yeah.
things are good, and we're in good spirits right now. So hope everybody else is the same. But Luke, dude, how are we doing?
I mean, look, well, I think we should say off camera. I mean, I don't think, Carson, you're ready to announce the really exciting thing, but I think we've both got some really cool things coming up in the pipeline. And I think we've both been very much chronically online this week. So I think we've got a lot of information to share. A lot of
Yes,
information to share.
a lot of
Right?
information.
This is going to be a lot of nuggets, a lot of nuanced detail. Like, get your notebook and get ready. Like, this is a good one. Trust me. We've planned this one.
I'm pumped for this one. All right, so let's kind of start here, Luke. Have you ever personally killed a creative because the data said you should?
Yes, I have. And it's interesting because I look back on why I did that and I realized that sometimes you kill a creative too quickly, right? And again, I think what I forgot to realize is that was maybe top of funnel. So the metric that I was looking at on that particular static was actually probably not the right metric, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've done that, but it's a mistake I've made. And I know.
Same here.
Yeah. And it can get a bit frustrating when you realize all statics should have the same metric as it's to be optimized for. Top of funnel, like if it does a conversion, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, that's like incredible stuff. But like top of funnel is also to grab attention. So you may not be getting the conversions you want, but it's also there to kind of agitate a problem in someone's mind. Would you agree?
I agree. And I think like kind of going into where, brands go wrong with using data too heavily is looking at the wrong metrics, right? Like click-through rates, ROAS, CPMs, they're all lagging indicators, and they're great to show you performance from like a low level in the weeds view, but they tell you what happened, not
Yep.
why, right? So you need to be looking at your data as a holistic thing, because ads are not just like, especially on Meta nowadays, they're not just targeting one audience for one ad. They're Meta's trying to create a funnel with this, correct? So when you're just looking at, 3-4 metrics and you're looking at what happened and you're killing based off of just that, you're doing something wrong. You need to be looking at those three for sure: CPA, hook rate, hold rate, frequency. Like you need to be looking at things from a holistic perspective. And that's why I think a lot of people go wrong with data, right? They just look at the two or three important ones, which is pretty much just ROI and CPA. But if you kill an ad that maybe has a little bit less of an ROI, but it's part of like your bottom funnel, that's going to hurt the whole account.
100%.
Right. So you need to be making decisions like either extend your time horizon a little bit to get a better view and see like what stage of the funnel are we at here. But it's not just like, this is what the numbers say, this is what we have to do. It's like you need to be able to understand where your ad is going to be located in the funnel, what it's doing, what it's targeting, and go from there.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I fully agree. And I think actually, if you are, as you're saying, if you only optimize for clicks and maybe CPA, you start to all your ads start to look the same. And you've also got to remember when you're doing advertising, and again with Meta ads, you're not just making one ad. It's not just siloed. You're making maybe 10 different types of ads and each ad needs to tell a story, right? Like for example, you may see a really good top of funnel of ads, and then maybe 2 days later you see an ad that kind of continues the story from the previous ad, right? But if you cut that ad, the first ad that's maybe top of funnel that isn't getting maybe the CPAs you want or the click-through rate, but maybe it tells a better story, and you kill it, the other ads may be affected, right? You've got to have that diversification. I think data can narrow taste, right?
I agree.
And
I think go ahead.
I was just saying, I think if you think about it, right, we're living in the world that everyone's got access to chat, right? I think AI in a way is making this worse because everyone's using the same prompts. I think actually you need to be really conscious of use data when like have data as in the background, but don't use it to be the indicator for everything, right? I mean, look, it's one of the big tensions that I have right now is kind of gut and data. And I'd love to kind of really understand your view on this and how kind of brands can avoid maybe making the mistake of focusing too much on data. How do you go about actually then with your clients? I know you're very passionate about this. How do you say, look, here's the data, but also here is a gut feeling? How do you play that?
Yeah. I think a lot of it just comes down to you need to be able to articulate why the data is not showing a full picture and why this ad is important to keep or stay if it's not necessarily doubling your money, right? If it's a bottom of funnel play or if it's something that kind of sits in the background and converts a few people on the back end, you need to be able to know why things are happening, not
Yeah.
just from a data perspective, but from a hypothesis, psychology, like behavioral funnel wise. Like you need to be able to know those things to make those intuition decisions. Like over optimizing numbers is what can kill on your creativity and long term, I would say probably brand equity, because you're just basically going off of the numbers are telling us everything. We're just going to stick with what's working and not try anything new. I think it just you narrow your vision, you get tunnel vision just because you're so focused on numbers, right? Like you have to keep pushing and testing different ideas to see what new oceans you can unlock within your audience.
And I think that is something that I've always said that you do really well at kind of mad advertising is I feel like, you understand that actually, okay, with algorithms now of these platforms, they can like it can change in a day how they're approaching it. I know Meta announcing 3 new metrics are coming through. I think one's about creative fatigue. I know you and I have a interesting belief on what
Yeah,
that actually means. I think one's about creative similarity as well. So
that'll be a
starting
good one.
so I don't know what the third one is. I can't remember off the top of my head, but what I'm trying to say is when you measure to a metric, you measure what matters, but actually sometimes you can't measure human psychology. You can't measure a feeling to something, right? And I feel like that's what you've done really well with your ads, something that I'm trying to copy. Is kind of really understanding that psychology. Feel like an artist, you have to. Uh, like understand the real psychology of the ad you're making. I mean, it's so critical. I mean,
It
look,
is.
like we talk about this all the time. I think we live in a really interesting stage of this kind of copycat culture where, and I'm not saying that I don't do it, right? But like ad libraries, right, make it very easy to kind of copy competitors. I think there's a time and place to maybe copy some of the fundamentals, like a couple of their ads. But I think there's some time where you need to deliberately zag. You have to, or you'll just be in the sea of sameness. You did a really funny post on Instagram about that ad where they copied the same. Was it like it was Dick, wasn't it? And it was like it meant to say duck.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, please, we'll put it up on the screen of what that ad looked like, but just tell me how angry you, because I knew you was just pissed. I remember the
Dude,
message.
I was here's so for those that don't follow me on Instagram or maybe don't know, there is an ad by Clear Shampoo Company, and it's more of a branding ad, not a direct response ad. And what it says is D_CK. And then it just underneath that, it says duck, not the other thing or something like that. And then it says feeling dirty, take a shower. And it's got Clear Shampoo positioned at the bottom. Hygiene Lab decided to take the ad verbatim, not change a single thing other than the elements of their brand and post it. And I put it on my story and called them out. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are we doing this? The funny thing was they saw my story.
But mate, like, but that's the thing. When you're living in this kind of copycat culture, I actually believe this still like an artist has kind of got out of hand, right? Because I feel like people like I think there's a balance, and I think like if you still like, for example, right? This is my belief. Let's say I'm working for a grooming product. Let's say like deodorant, right? Yeah. If I want to be completely different in that niche, I will just go look at maybe, I don't know, a women health and wellness brand, see what static ads they're running, understand the essence of what they're saying, and then take that to then that niche because it'd be completely different, right? But if you're doing like you're saying, copying literally verbatim, like for like,
Verbatim. They're literally the only things that were different were the background and the product. That's it. Anyway, back to our data
yes,
discussion.
Yeah.
because if I get into that, it's going to be the rest of the episode. But
Mate, honestly.
one thing I want people to understand is take attribution with a grain of salt, because in my opinion, attribution is fake. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why. Data wise, I have a great example of this. I bought shoes about 2 months ago, bought new running shoes, right? Because of a brand I follow on social media, and I saw a social post and I saw like the shoes that I wanted, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to get those. So I type into Google, the website, I go and purchase the shoes. For them, they're going to get credit from the search engine just saying it was website direct. That's the reason for the purchase. They don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
It came from their organic social. And this is why attribution is why I hate it so much. Why we give everything, we have to give everything credit or else it doesn't matter. Because I've seen billboards that have made me want things. I've seen ads that have made me want things. I've seen organic. I've seen like everything you could think of.
Yeah.
Just planting the seed, the initial point where you make the subconscious decision, but not the actual decision.
Of course.
Attribution is only going to credit the last touch, not the first thing that happened. If you're posting on organic and someone sees an ad and then they finally pull the trigger, the ad is getting the credit, but the organic did all the work. So the incrementality of it is just completely wiped. So it's just very misleading. And like, I don't want people to think, either agency wise, in-house wise, whatever, if an ad is not directly getting the sales, but the company is profitable and you turn it off, there's a big problem there. And it's hard to decide what times to do those things because we don't have the full picture, right? We can't see into people's heads, but this is why like you need to be able to make intuitive decisions and not just rely on data.
Well, I agree. And I also think actually in a way, I think what we can take away from kind of science is this testing approach. In my opinion, I think if you actually have like a fair, rigid approach where you're like, okay, these are the rules that we have in place for ads. And then some ads will be like, okay, maybe it isn't performing what we think it should be performing, but we'll keep it there for a bit longer. I think you just have to think more like a system. Because also, like, if you look at all these platforms, as you said, Google, Meta, and we're looking at the rise of kind of AI agents now with search and stuff, they're going to want themselves to look as good as possible. So they will, as said, they will steal credit for anything, like anything to make themselves look good because they want you to spend more money on their platform, right? Like, people forget that, I think. And actually, you're so right. I think, I think it's underutilized. I think organic content needs to be the fundamental pillar for any brands now.
Dude, it needs to be the biggest thing you focus on.
Precisely.
It has to be.
I think it goes perfectly onto our next section of how do small brands succeed, and it's understanding content and understanding especially organic content. I think the future of marketing is content. I think it's content. Like, I just think the old marketing playbook's out the window, in my opinion.
Yep.
I mean, I'd love to kind of hear your approach because I think we work with a balance of brands, kind of on our end and on also your end of kind of different sizes. And I'd love to kind of hear what you're talking them through right now in approaching kind of, what are you telling them that they need to do to succeed in your opinion? Like, what's been the big things in your head, would you say?
I mean, I tell everybody, especially any brands I meet with that are small, most of the time, if they're not in a place like to spend good enough money on ads, I just say you need to go focus on organic content. Don't even worry about ads. Like, yeah, you might be a little bit slower, but you have to figure that out before you can really attack the ad space if you don't have the money to do it, because you have no brand, you have no credibility, like you have nothing for people to trust you. So why do you think that running ads is gonna solve that problem if you're just burning money?
Precisely.
And you need to, like, I would say the number one thing with organic is you need to nail your positioning and you need to nail what type of content works. What do you want to build? Start with just what you want to build. Do you want to build a community? Do you want to build like a lifestyle? Do you want to build like a funny, kind of branded humor, whatever? I don't know, I'm losing words here, but you need to just figure out what you want to build and then start going up the ladder from there. You need to start with positioning. You need to learn how to do storytelling. You need to learn like what psychology is going into why people are buying or doing certain things. Test angles, not just your assets.
Yep, fully agree.
And pick a channel to master, I would say
Yeah.
start with Instagram. That's where most things nowadays are going to live. But like moving on from that, it's like, okay, once you master Instagram, you can go to TikTok and do all these other things, but diversify it as well. From your point of view, what are some of the things that brands need to focus on organically that I might have either missed or that you want to extra emphasize?
I just think I think what's really interesting, if you look at I think if you look at the feedback loops, right? If you focus on organic feedback loop, organic does not lie. It will never lie to you. It will tell you will like, look, I posted something before, 0 engagement, right? I was like, okay, fair. Like, and you learn, it's like, okay, cool. That's a really quick feedback loop. You will know very quickly if it isn't working, right? Paid is slightly different because it's a different type of feedback loop. But I think, as we've always said, right, I think organic, if something pops off in the organic, it will do very well in the paid. So you just promote it to a paid, right? But also, I think to add on to that, I think just founder-led proof. Tell people the why. People, look, we're not all natural storytellers, right? Something that I do that's really simple, just take the essence of your idea, right? And just ask ChatGPT, say, look, how would we make this into a hero arc story, right? And then we'll help you. And then don't just copy it word for word because people know it's that scripted, but just understand, okay, you need to have that kind of like the call to action for the hero, have like a butt in there, cause a bit of tension and contrast. Principles of storytelling are so important in your content, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
And how do you think, like, getting a little bit more granular here,
yeah, of course.
how do you think these smaller brands can, really make the most of their advertising? Let's say they're spending $100 a day and they've got like a, sizable following, less than 10K still, maybe just around it. How do you think they should go about succeeding with their ads? Like, what do you think, from your point of view, is important to do?
You just have to, I mean, again, it's so easy to just hit you with the buzzword and say stand out, but I'm actually going to tell you how I would approach that. What I mean by standing out in the feed is just understand, and it's pretty hard to explain. I think it's not hard to explain, but some people do disagree. It's in a way, like if you do really high polished ads and it's like, oh, I want to be really brand, no one gives a shit about your brand. Like you've
No
got
one does.
5,000 followers, no one cares, right? Like
Yep.
no one knows who you are. So I think what I approach is like when you're doing paid ads and you haven't got much budget, just you know, just really think of how can I play with the game? Okay, how can I actually play against the game? How can I make my ad stand out? How can I make it so that no one's ever seen it before? Like, for example, there's an ad doing really, really big right now. It's where it's like our graphic designer's on holiday, right? And they'll have a picture of the product like drawn as a cartoon, like a kid has drawn it, right? Like things like that stand out in the feed, I think is the best way to approach it. If you do a
It is.
generic 3 reasons why you've got and no one knows who you are, they'll be like, oh, just another 3 reasons why brand. But if you actually do stuff that stands out in the feed, that's an ad. I think that does better. What do you think?
And I think yes, but the caveat is your job at a certain point is to provide value
Yes.
in whatever sense that may be, whether it's solving problems, whether it's selling a lifestyle, status, whatever it is. And status is a little bit different because that's usually you have to have a brand to be able to do that. But like there's a certain point, an inflection point, I think, and it's around the 10K follower mark where things kind of switch. But the biggest problem I see is just brands running ads that are just their pictures of their product or just discounts, intro offers, all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't understand where the idea comes from that people are going to care. You have to make them care. But the number one job of an advertiser is to get, keep, and convert attention. That's it. That's it. So what are you going to do to get the attention? You have to stand out, like Luke said. To keep the attention, you have to be able to storytell or keep people engaged. And then you have to convert it. You have to give a call to action and show them why they actually need or should want your product.
Mm.
It's so simple and we overcomplicate it or we underthink it, right? Like we either think people care and whatever we put out is going to succeed, or we think, I don't know how to do any of this. This is so hard. I'm not going to do it. Or I'm just going to do the most complicated shit in the world. It doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, but then also to add to that, if I'm a small brand, right, and I haven't got the social proof, right, but let's say I'm selling a mushroom coffee, right, like mud water, for example, like for me, what would be really important would be like, okay, let's go look at the reviews that they're having on their website, understand the vernacular from that website, your competitor, because you can take the messaging from that and approach it to your brand, because they're they are your customers, and so you can actually understand the problem better, and then your content will actually give value, because you're like, okay, this is how they talk about the problem, and that's how you then tweak your websites, your product pages, your emails, etc. Because you just go, okay, what are my competitors doing? Don't copy. I'm not saying copy their website. I'm saying just look at the reviews and how do people talk about the problem, and then use that to inform your strategy. I think that's such an easy, gold mine, way. Do you not agree?
I agree. And I think one thing to emphasize there, if you're a small brand and you want to succeed with your ads, you need to start getting as much engagement from your customers or your followers on your organic side or even your ad side. Because if you don't have a lot of reviews, you're not going to know what your customer thinks. So if you can get them to just comment, that's going to be the easiest place to get it. It's going to be the easiest place to get people to ask questions or say positive things and really spark conversation. You have to be able to do this stuff on the organic side, not just ads. Ads are wonderful, and yes, they're my career, but I know how important the organic side is, and I know that it carries over to advertising. So if you're watching this, please, for the love of God, do everything in your power to focus on organic social. Please. It's free. All it costs you is your time and ideas.
Yeah.
You have a phone, go film. Go study go study hooks, go study storytelling. I don't care what you do, but you have to go focus on that, because everything is a funnel. And if you just have ads rolling and you're not building a brand or building your own world or community on the organic side, your ads are going to suck. You're not going to get any sales. No one cares about you. They only care about themselves. So how can you make them care about you through by giving them something to talk about themselves or whatever, if you understand what I'm saying, thank God. But there's just so much people miss out on because they just focus so heavily on dumping money into ads and not actually creating something people want.
Also, it's such an easy unlock that I always say to brands, if you're starting out and someone orders something, call them. Ask them if you can record the call and listen to them talking about the problem.
Yeah.
That is
Breeze does that. Yeah.
Just that is the number one. You've got someone that has bought your product, right? But call them hey, can we chat? I'm the owner or founder of this business. They'll tell you about their story, and then you can use that to inform your messaging.
Yeah. It's just about getting gritty. People just don't want to do it.
Well, it's just
it's understandable. It can be scary at first, but if you have nothing to lose if you're a small brand.
Precisely.
And you don't have a brand yet, so you might as well just go all out and do everything you can to be scrappy and get the attention.
And I think that's the fundamental. I think look, don't copy what the big brands are doing now, because they've already got the brand equity. They've already had the years as a brand. They've already got if you try and copy Nike's ads, good luck, because people know the Nike logo,
Yeah.
But
they know the brand, they know the messaging, so it's they can get away with the certain messages. But what are some brands you think, Luke, that do really well with their advertising?
That's a great question. It's interesting because I think I'm going to probably talk about bigger brands that I like. And I think there's some learnings for smaller brands. I would love to kind of really do a quick deep dive into the American Eagle Sydney Sweeney ad, right? About, the jeans ad. And I think that is a really clever example, right? Where they stood very firm in their polarizing kind of campaign, right? But the conflict drove attention. But they didn't bow down. They stayed and held their position, and it worked.
Yep.
I mean, what do you think?
Dude, that campaign, I don't care what people think of it. The way that they built I mean, listen, the numbers here don't lie. $300 million in a day is pretty absurd just from one ad. And they did it right. They stood on their ground and they created conflict. They pissed people off on one side and they got loyal followers on the next. And guess who fought for them? The loyal followers. Because they were like, nah, this is tough. We're going to buy American Eagle now. The other ones were like, shame on you for doing whatever. They're just being soft about it. Now, do I think the ad inherently was good? Not my favorite. Do I think the play was good? Hell yeah. That was
Yeah.
awesome. I loved it. One thing too that I want to point out is like going back to how small brands can succeed, you need to be able to like create conflict. You have nothing to lose when you're such a small brand. Do whatever you can to just build loyal followers, even if it means pissing people off. And I think a lot of people stray away from that. They try to target everybody or they try to just appeal to people in whatever facet they can. You need to be dividing rooms.
Yeah. But then look, I think there's also a caveat to the American Eagle Sydney Sweeney ad, because if you look at the most recent example of how you can do that wrong, look at the second decision with the Hennessy ad with LeBron James, right?
I didn't understand that.
Like, they built up this hype and many fans just felt misled. And it was like, yes, they got tons of views at the top of funnel, but you've also like,
No one cared.
no, that's the thing. So you've got to, and I think in my opinion, where the Hennessy ad went wrong is they didn't have a point of view in that ad, right?
Yeah.
It was just like,
They
oh
didn't
yeah,
stand for anything.
precisely. They was like, look, haha, we got you. Second decision, Hennessy. Like,
Yeah.
there was no, and I mean, look, I mean, I would love to talk to you kind of about I think these are important. Again, we're talking about companies that are advertising well. I mean, look at OpenAI with the pull-up campaign. Look at
Liquid
Claude with
death.
Keep Thinking. I mean, that made you feel something. Have you seen both ads, by the way? You know what? Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I hated both of them.
Okay, wow. Okay, nice. Let's chat. Okay, fine. Then this is good. This is
why did you like them? I'm curious.
Okay,
I want to hear this from an advertiser's perspective.
I'll tell you what I like them, and I'll tell you what I liked and what I didn't like. What I liked was the feeling, and it's also kind of a double-edged sword here. I love the feeling of nostalgia and retroness, right? I loved how they understood the pain, that a lot of the fear. They understood there's so much fear out there right now that AI is going to steal people's jobs, right? And what I liked is that they played into that insight, that cultural insight. That's what I loved. Now this may get slightly interesting because this is also a double-edged sword, because this is what I didn't like. They are OpenAI and Claude, right, or Anthropic. They are meant to be the leaders of the future. They are meant to be telling us what the future looks like, but they can't even tell us what the aesthetic looks like. They have to go back in time and do retro nostalgia ads, right? Does that not? That's the one thing that didn't sit with me very well. It's like they don't even know what the future of aesthetic is. So their best example is let's go back retro and nostalgia. So there is tension there in my mind of what, like, I loved it and I also hated it, which is probably a hard thing for an audience to understand. I mean, what was your thinking?
Honestly, my biggest problem was with the static side, because
Okay, nice.
especially for Claude and ChatGPT, like ChatGPT stuff was just their logo and a picture, and it didn't make me feel anything. Like there was nothing standing out being like, oh yeah, like that made me feel something. It's just like, one of the ones that I remember was a woman on her phone cooking, it just says the logo and ChatGPT. It's like, what does that do? What does that do? It doesn't do anything. And then Claude, Keep Thinking, is something that so many other brands can say. Why wouldn't you try to take something and make it your own
Yeah.
to push like the uniqueness of your platform, of your AI? Like Keep Thinking, it's like, bro, if I wanted to, I could slap that for Apple and say Keep Thinking.
Yeah. Well,
I could say that if I was ChatGPT. I could say that if I was whatever other company that is somewhat similar. It's just it's a broad phrase that doesn't A, make me feel anything, and B, is something anybody else could say. So it's like, what's special about it to me? Nothing. That's why I don't like either of them, is because nothing really like stood out to me as being one of one.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, it'd be interesting actually if I think what's clear. I mean, I think you and I are big fans of what Harry Joy does, and one day hopefully we get him on the pod. That would be an insane episode.
That'd be legendary.
But like, I think you're right in the way it's actually Keep Thinking can be said universally, right? I do kind of see what you mean actually. Like, I'm not like I'm flip flopping on my. I was a big fan of the video campaign. I did enjoy it from a visual point of view, but I from a messaging point, I do see it isn't as specific as it should be.
Yeah, that was my biggest issue there.
Like, and I think, and you're right, yeah. But it's interesting because I think for small brands, what they could take away from that possibly is actually say things that no one else can say, but you can say.
Yeah. Yep. And that's not as to say like people. Whenever I say that, people are like, it's impossible to say something that no one's ever said. It's like, that's not the point of it. The point is to use your brand and what you're about to say something in a way that only you can say it. And I know that might be confusing for a second, but I'm going to dive in. Hinge has a great they're like one of my favorite examples of this. Their ad for the dating app designed to be deleted.
Yeah, nice.
Now, while anyone can maybe say that if they're a dating app, Hinge has now said it, they own the phrase. So you
Yeah.
need to have a phrase that you can say first and no one else can take, right? Like if any other brand decides to take that, then it's like, all right, well, obviously you're copying Hinge. Another great one, Pure Sport. They have what's their saying? For the long run,
Yeah. I
I
think so.
believe. I think it's for the long run.
It's
They had, I think, Hoka and Puma both copy them on their websites. And it's like everyone knows now, if you know Pure Sport, you know that that's their phrase. And you're like, what the hell? Like, that's Pure Sport. That's not Puma. That's not them. Nike, just do it. Like, Nike owns that phrase. It's not a matter of like saying something no one's ever said before. It's a matter of taking something and making it your own. And I think that's like when brands advertise well, like Liquid Death, Murder Your Thirst, like Apple, Think Different. That one is not my favorite, but like they own the phrase now, right? 1,000 songs in your pocket. Great ad. They can only say it. There's just so many ways that if you want to advertise well, you have to be able to say things no one else has said or no one else can say.
Yeah. But I think also as well, and again, like, it's not easy. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that
Nah.
I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, look, me and Carson could find, someone's tagline in an hour's session. It's
Yeah, it ain't that easy.
because a tagline, for example, for the long run with Pure Sport is they've really understood the culture of the community they're playing to. They know they've boiled it down to the essence. Because for me, when you say for the long run, it's that feeling of, a bit of us versus them. It's for the ones that go for the long run, right?
Yeah.
So many stories and messages you can take off that, right? Like, I mean, I would love to do a campaign for Pure Sport. That'd be I have so many ideas I would do for them because it's just like, it's a clever thing because that story can be repeated. Like just do it, right? Like that can be that story, that little essence of a story of just do it can go anywhere, in any sport, in any category, in anything, right? Like
And I'll
Nike,
just do it is just try.
yeah,
And there's so much they can like relate back to that. I mean, Nike's a obviously standout example and probably
yeah,
one of the top 3 all time of just being, so good with what they're messaging. But they have done a great job in just saying things no one else can say because they've built a brand around just do it, around just trying, around, being gritty and being an athlete and chasing greatness and doing things people don't want to do. All of that stuff. Another one that comes to mind, cadence, daily discipline.
that's a great one.
Yeah. That's one that like they own. It's a saying that anybody could say, but Cadence owns that.
But also as well, I think it's important. Like, let's say it isn't. Let's say like it isn't. I don't know, a tagline. Maybe it's like a certain macro you own. And for example, what I mean by that is look at David's bar, like David's protein, right? Like they went into a category and they went, right, what does this category care about? They care about calories and protein, right? So they positioned everything around that. Maximum proteins, minimal calories. Like,
Yeah,
it
they
doesn't have to
nailed it.
be a nice, like, certain, like, again, I think it's important, right? Take things that make sense to you and apply it, right? Like, certain industries, maybe a tagline doesn't make sense. Even though I think
Mhm.
most industries, I think it does. But like, you know, I think it's very important. Get your messaging, get your positioning, right? Understand who you are for and who you're not for. I fully agree with you, man. Fully
That's
agree,
what the best brands do well. I mean, you look at Duolingo, they're another brand,
man.
right? Like not having, I think a big one for them in terms of just angle wise is people not having time to study their stuff. And it's like, oh, you're at the bus stop. You can study Duolingo while you wait, train delayed, study while you wait. There's just so many different ways for them to do it. I think smaller brand wise, we named 2, Cadence and Pure Sport. Those are great. I also think that there's a couple more that stand out to me, but I want to hear some of yours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first off the bat, I would say Nectar, the hard seltzer brand. I think they built a great campaign and community around, quit the claw. And I think that was a very clever way of being playful and kind of just excellent community led marketing, right? And I think and also I think it's what they understood Because again, I think we're talking about taglines. I think that can actually transcend into formats. What format can you own as a brand, right? So Nectar, for example, nailed the kind of, try and store format where they would film their little like their little they would go into like a Target or something or Walmart and they'd have like a little stand and they would be selling their drinks there and they just filmed that as content. And that was a format that they nailed, right? So I think not only do brands need to have a great tagline and messaging, they also need to find a format that people know. They go, oh, you're copying them because it's like that format. Look at Hot Ones, right? The chicken wings, right? The spicy wings. If anyone does that, I mean, I did that, for example, on LinkedIn, right? People would come up to me and be like, you've copied Hot Ones. Yes. I think it's trying to find a format that you can take and make it your own. I don't know.
Yep.
What do you think? So I think
I agree.
Nectar is a good one.
That's a good one. I think a couple other ones that are great are, let's see, I'm trying to think of ones that people would probably know. Let's see here. I think Breeze, I think they're another one. Another great brand. Relatively, like I would still say there's SMB. I think Leaf Shave, they're another good one.
Yeah.
But one that I think does really well is The Perfect Gene.
Ooh.
Because their whole spiel is about stretchy jeans and being able to like be comfortable and not restricted and do anything. I mean, Truett Haynes, who for those that don't know is like a ultra human athlete, endurance athlete. He's run like multiple marathons in jeans, in the Perfect Gene actually, and it's just like a testament more to, jeans that aren't going to restrict you from doing things. Now, I'm not the Perfect Gene kind of guy. I personally like Levi's, but I still think they do a great job.
But that's also another thing we can take. Like, if you're what the best brands do, and this is such an easy hack for small brands, right? Think showmanship is advertising, like running a marathon in jeans, right? It's such a visual thing. You can go, I get exactly what they do. I want a pair. Like for me, like if I'm a brand, right? I don't know. What can you show like as like the most over the top showmanship thing ever? I mean, look at Mouse in the UK. They're like a screen protector brand. They will pluck their phones off fucking dams.
Yeah.
Sorry, language. Like they're throwing, and then the guy is skydiving down to get it. I mean, again, I'm not saying if you're a small brand, you have to buy that. Red Bull, like be showmanship.
Showmanship is salesmanship. There's a great book for anybody that either likes to read, wants to read, or just wants a great book on creativity and advertising. You need to read Why Does the Peddler Sing? It's about creative advertising and how, I forget the author's name, basically is a true believer in the fact that if you are a showman, you will inherently become a salesman. Because you're not selling directly to people. You're selling indirectly through, desired outcomes, problem solving, all this type of stuff. You need to be able to be a showman first and an entertainer, and then you can be a salesman through that.
Agreed. I think that is, and fundamentally, and I think that's kind of like the big takeaway for me from this episode is don't get me wrong, like what we do at Big, like we will use data, like when it makes sense. There's also moments where it doesn't need to be in the room, right? And I think that is the game, is balance. And I'm not saying that we've got it, but you've just got to have that in the back of your mind of what is like in this conversation we're having right now, what are we not focusing on? And if it's too much data, then maybe take it out for a bit and actually talk about like, really big creative swings or really big showmanship things, right? But I don't believe data will tell you that because it's not, data has no taste, there's no gut. It's it's objective. And I think you've got to be subjective when you're doing some really great ads, in my opinion. Like,
I agree. And I think data's a guest that needs to be invited into a room upon request, not somebody that sits at the table and has a voice.
Precisely.
Like it's something you need to look at when the time is right, but you can't just rely on data to make all your decisions. You have to have intuition. You have to have faith in something that, like, if it's a brand play. I mean, you look at Red Bull. That's a great example. One of the greatest brands of all time. Just they don't sell any direct response ads. It's all brand plays that just builds a world for them, and like-minded people gravitate towards it. Extreme athletes, people who do like Olympic level cool shit. There's just a certain point where you have to look at data and say, okay, this is great insight, but what else is at play here? Creatively, psychology, behaviorally, all of these other factors that go into it that you need to make decisions based on, not just the numbers.
No, I agree. I agree. But last thing I want to end on before we close the episode off is a bit of a Luke's predicting the future statement,
Oh, I
right?
like this.
And we may do it on some of the episodes, but this is one that I want to talk to you about, right? The future of AI agents making buying decisions for people, right? So, and this is something that I'm intrigued by for you. It's if people are asking their AIs, right, for fine products, what will the relationship between an AI looking at another ad? Will the AI read ads and then be like, oh, my person will want to see that thing? Like, what do you think about that? The world of, OpenAI store, ChatGPT store, whatever you call it, you know, what's your views on that? And that's what I want to end on today's episode with.
So here is where I think there will become a bottleneck for AI in this space.
Mm.
The autonomy bias that we have, our freedom to make decisions, we don't like that to be threatened. So if things are making decisions for us and we're not the ones pulling the trigger, there's going to be less of an inclination to be able to have something buy things for you unless it knows exactly that you already want the product. If you have said buy me this product and it does it, that's one thing. But having an agent buy everything for you without you knowing or without you looking at, what it is or anything detail wise, I don't see that being very successful just from a human behavioral standpoint and evolutionary standpoint. We're not going to change that in, 3 to 5 years. That's a very long process to be able to kind of all humans be hands off in their buying process and their journey because we want information and we want to know what we're getting into.
Yeah. No, and I think actually my argument and the reason why I want to bring it up, because I think it goes back to what you do very well, and it's the emotional and the irrational thing, right? I think, humans buy on emotion, but it's interesting, but machines, I wonder, will they buy on logic? I mean, they don't have emotion. They're not human, right? It's a machine. So I think it's going to be very interesting how the future brands and how they communicate, right? Because if we think about it, right, if you look at ChatGPT, I think this is really important for small brands, I think, is that you've got to think, okay, if the habit of searching isn't on Google now, it's using their AIs, right? It's how does a small brand, turn up in those conversations, right? And I think it's really talking about, the family owned business stuff. Like people like stories. I think it's so important to understand story. And again, I know it's a buzzword, be more story led. Just tell the story about who you are as a person and why you do it. People care
Yeah.
about the why,
Because
not
they
the
can
what.
see themselves.
There you go.
That's exactly why it's important. Yep. I think that's a great place to end too. So
Okay.
with
I
that
agree.
being said, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe as always. And you can check Luke and I out on our other social channels below. We've got all our links there. Dude, this is a great episode. Glad we got to chop it up and do something a little bit more, I would say probably boring that we made exciting.
Yes.
But
I mean, yeah.
it's been great. Hopefully next week we'll have a guest lined up maybe.
We can't be
We'll have
spoiling
to
too
see.
much.
Yeah, we'll have to see who we can get on, and
I've got some ideas.
I will be actually in Atlanta next week too, but I'll be good to record on Wednesday. So we will see everybody back again next Thursday. Obviously, this episode will be up tomorrow, but anyway, I digress.
Yes, but mate, honestly, yeah, pleasure as always, and we'll come back next week with I've got a banging episode planned for next week.
Perfect. I love it.
I've got an idea for next week. We've got some good ideas. But look, anyway, that's bye from me. Bye from
Peace.
Carl.
See you guys soon.
See you later. Bye.